Good morning, everyone. I'm Linda Rains, CEO of BrainFutures. I want to thank you all for being here this morning. Had a lot of questions walking in the door. Who is BrainFutures? Where did they come from, and how are they connected to the Mental Health Association? So BrainFutures launched in 2015 because its parent organization, the Mental Health Association, was stunned and awed by the incredible promise of recent neuroscience advances for both the treatment of brain illness and to optimize our potential as human beings. Today, we're focused on the latter, a brain fitness agenda for youth. In my 30 years in this field, I cannot think of a scientific advance that has more potential to transform lives than the discovery of lifelong brain plasticity. Next, you will have the opportunity to hear from an esteemed leader in the field of neuroscience, Dr. Bruce Wexler, Professor Emeritus of Psychiatry and Senior Research Scientist at the Yale School of Medicine. Bruce has been internationally recognized for his work in advancing understanding of brain plasticity and its practical application. He's been an incredible mentor to all of us on the BrainFutures team, and is one of the rare scientists who can share the science of executive function in a way that is crystal clear, even to those of us who are not neuroscientists. Welcome, Bruce.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Linda. Thank you all for coming. There was an international study done comparing academic outcomes in students from 35 countries. United States students ranked 19th in science, 20th in reading, and 30th in mathematics out of 35 countries. Here at home, we have a very shameful problem of the disparity in academic outcomes as a function of income. Children raised in poverty are 3 times more likely to perform below proficiency in state exams, and half as likely to score in the highly proficient range. So what we're doing isn't working very well, and too many students are headed for lives as young adults without the cognitive executive skills and social emotional skills they need to become productive members of our society rather than burdens on the society. Executive cognitive functions are essential for learning. There are a set of cognitive functions that are supported by overlapping neural systems, largely in the frontal and parietal areas of the brain, and that's one of the reasons we group them together. But they, as collectively, enable us to manage information and manage ourselves. Examples of the primary ones of these executive functions are self-control, memory, cognitive flexibility, and the ability to focus attention, especially in the presence of distraction. Decades of research have shown that executive cognitive functions are more powerful predictors of academic success than is IQ. Children with compromised attention in 3rd grade are 8 times more likely to become high school dropouts. But the effects and importance of executive function don't stop in elementary school or high school. This study followed 1,000 children, starting when they were 3 years old, and followed them until they were in their early 30s, with an amazing ability to have followed 985 out of the 1,000 that started the study. And they found that not only do these executive functions, when assessed in childhood, predict academic success, not only do kids with low executive function become more likely to use drugs, to have motor vehicle accidents, engage in unsafe sex, but beyond that, they have lower income, poorer career outcomes as they enter into their 20s and 30s, more likely to have legal problems, continued problems with drug abuse, and it actually impacts their physical health. Cardiometabolic health is compromised by poor executive functions. Poverty compromises another series of studies done over decades again. And as Amy said, this information has been available for a while. Decades of research have established that poverty compromises the development of executive cognitive functions. So there's no mystery why children from poverty are not doing as well in school. And we understand a number of the reasons why. Children in poverty, often their parents are worried about paying the rent. Some may be working 2 jobs. They're tired. There's more likely to be single-parent families, more likely to be drug abuse and other problems in the families. So collectively, the parents have less time and less energy just to talk to the children. When they do talk to the children, they talk in shorter sentences, more limited vocabulary, less complex cognitive structures to help the child imitate and learn. When they discipline the child, they discipline in a way that does not foster the same type of cognitive growth. It's also demonstrated that, in general, parents with poor executive function have children with poor executive function. So this is part of the mechanism of the transgenerational transmission of poverty that we can break if we can intervene to improve executive cognitive functions. So not only did children in poverty fail to get the good stuff, and their parents don't have the money to buy the best toys that are going to promote their cognitive development, they don't have the time or money to take them to the science museums and other events like that. But not only do they miss out on this good stuff, they get bad stuff. Because secondhand smoke, disrupted sleep, poor nutrition, exposure to violence. One study in Chicago, they monitored children prospectively to see how much they slept at night, and they measured their stress hormones in the morning. And if there was one murder in their neighborhood, the children in that neighborhood slept a half hour less and had higher cortisol levels the next morning. The effects of poverty on brain development are as evident as early as 9 months of age. So this is a study of an electrophysiology study of the EEG patterns. And what the red represents is the amount of EEG activity that's associated with executive functions. This amount of electrophysiological activity of this type, this particular power spectrum, when you're a child or when you're very young, predicts your executive function skills. And you can see in the low-income children that the band of red is thinner than the band of red in the children from high income. So by 9 months, their brain development is already lagging behind, and it is critical for life success. You can't pour water into a bottle when the lid's closed, right? So what is it that's going on in so many of our schools? Well, kids aren't learning math. Let's pour some more math in. Let's spend more money on more math. Well, they're not learning reading. Let's pour some more reading. It won't go in. They need the executive cognitive skills to open the jar for learning. The human brain has 86 billion neurons, each one directly connected to 1,000 other ones, and each one getting hundreds of inputs in 1,000th of a second. But how does it work? How does it work to do thinking, executive function, emotions? These functions are the result of the integrated action of hundreds of thousands of neurons spread around the brain. This is a modern understanding of how the brain works. You can see the picture here on one side is the 19th century understanding. The idea that each of our cognitive functions, even our moral qualities, were located in a specific region of the brain. That idea is hard for many scientists to give up, to tell you the truth. But in fact, that's not the way it works. We know that the brain works by dynamically reconfiguring neural systems. And it's these neural systems that support our thinking. So that raises a new question. Where do the connections come between the neurons that create the neural systems? Hubel and Wiesel were given the Nobel Prize for demonstrating the degree to which the structure and function of the brain are shaped after birth by stimulation from the environment. This is more true of human beings than any other animal. We human beings are the only animals that change the environment that changes our brain. That's a very powerful dynamic, unique to us. We call that cultural evolution. And that's responsible for many very good things about human beings. But the downside of that is if you don't get the cognitive stimulation you need, your brain won't develop. This is an example, and there are many others. This is an example of the effect on your brain, the actual structure of your brain, if you practice a musical instrument for many hours as a child. And do I actually have a pointer? I do. Oh. If you play the violin, your left hand does a lot of fancy fingering movements. Your right hand does relatively simple bowing movements. Now, the right hand is controlled by the sensory motor area in the left side of the brain. So if you look at the left side of the brain here, the area encircled is the sensory motor area connected with this relatively simple movement of the bow. The right side is connected with the complex movements of your fingers. And I don't know if you can see all the way in the back, but most of you can see with the naked eye the volume expansion in that area of the brain associated with practicing the violin for many hours so that you have all these complex movements. This is volume expansion is because of the increase in richness and number of connections between the neurons in these neural circuits. The bottom side is a piano player who uses both hands and has two of these buffed up motor cortices. So this is the opportunity. I tried to give you an idea of the neuroscience basis and how confident we are what the problem is. We understand a lot about where it comes from. But from a neuroscientist point of view, it's a pretty straight shot. We know these cognitive executive functions predict academic outcome. We know they're compromised by poverty. I looked at that and I said, we know the brain's neuroplastic. We can drive the development of those neural systems to support executive cognitive function by creating certain programs. And so this is the opportunity that we can harness the brain's neuroplastic potential to address and mitigate, as Amy said, the effects of poverty on cognitive development. So I call these set of programs school lunch programs for the brain. Because if kids come to school without enough food, we can give them food at school. They'll actually grow faster and catch up to their growth potential. What these programs do is provide the food the brain needs and the rest and relaxation the brain needs with the meditation programs in order for it to grow and catch up to its potential. So thank you for being here, showing the level of interest that you do by being here, but also by the other work you're doing. And I hope that all of us together can start to make the impact that the Kennedy Forum was hoping would start in 2015. We can start it now. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Bruce.